Hey there, I'm Sarah Zarella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know directly from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day when you say, I do. After photographing for over 20 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise. Because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point with a fresh, honest take on the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sarah Zarella, and today I'm talking with Nikki, who's the owner of Beauty by Mineko. So Nikki is going to be joined by her husband, Jason, who is the owner of Dawson Entertainment. They actually were on our last podcast episode together. They're a husband and wife team in the industry, but they actually do very separate things. Nikki's a hair and makeup artist who starts your wedding day, and Jason is a DJ who ends your wedding day. So today with Nikki, we're going to talk about beauty and how to prep your skin for your big day. And then we're going to talk a little bit about timelines and why they're so important. So if you are wondering how to get your skin beauty ready for your wedding day, this is the podcast episode for you. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sarah Zarella, and today I am joined by Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming. And now who's sitting to the right?
Oh, the lucky gentleman, Jason.
And why is he lucky?
Because he married me.
Fair. Hi, Jason.
Hi.
And so for our listeners, we actually had Jason on 2 weeks ago for his episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. So, Jason, who are you? Other than Nikki's husband.
Yeah, Nikki's husband, of course. DJ Entertainment, Dawson Entertainment is the business. And, we do wedding DJ, photo booth lighting, all that fun stuff.
Right. And then, Nikki, how did you meet him?
I had moved up here 16 years ago from the South and met him at Shrine in Foxwoods as a bottle server, and we both opened the club, and the rest is history.
And how many kids do you guys have?
We have 2 boys.
Yes.
One that's going to be 10 next month, and 3.5.
Wow. Keep you very active.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you are, both in the wedding industry.
Yes, we are.
Rest is history.
Rest is history. It's fun. It's been fun.
Good. I would think so, too. And it's funny because you both are on opposite sides of the spectrum, right? Like you start the day and then, Jason, you close out the day, right?
Yeah.
That's very true, that's what's kind of funny about it. We do a lot of weddings together, but
you don't see each other.
We rarely see each other.
Rarely.
And childcare must be awesome because one can't, well, it must be tough for you, Jason, because you're like pretty much probably sleeping when she starts.
Oh, yeah, because I'm up late. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaving super early. So our babysitter, she's absolutely amazing. She loves the kids. So, and that's what matters.
Right. Well, for our listeners, Nikki, tell us who you are, who you serve, and what you do in your business.
All right. So my name is Nicole Dawson. I am located in Mystic, Connecticut, and I am a bridal specialist for hair and makeup. I'm also a licensed esthetician, so I do facials, chemical peels, lash lifts, waxing. You know, I like to be able to offer a little bit of everything to my brides and clients and, you know, help the brides, know how to take care of themselves and help them take care of their skin so that they can be wedding ready.
Right. And I think, too, it's a very unique to find someone who does both, like hair and makeup, let alone the third component now, which is being licensed, right?
Yes.
And beauty care.
Yes.
And skincare,
Yep.
actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there is a really successful package, because I know a lot of times I get asked a lot about, do you recommend a hair and makeup? And sometimes I have to send the email with like, okay, here's who does both, and here's who does this, and here's who does that one, right?
Yes. It's funny you mentioned that, because you don't find many artists out there that do both hair and makeup. And, from my end, sometimes that could be a little frustrating, being able to find artists that like to do both. And I understand, hairstylists don't want to do makeup. They just want to focus on the hair, and, vice versa. But being able to offer the whole entire package is a pretty sweet deal.
I love it. Well, I think for today's show, what we're going to do is we're going to focus a little bit more on the prep work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of getting wedding ready.
Yeah.
So with that said, talk to me about that. So for our listeners, right, they're obviously interested in the hair and makeup component. And, they're probably thinking about what are they going to do? How are they going to get ready? So talk to me a little bit about getting your skin ready for the big day.
Yeah. So, on my first initial calls with my brides, I go over everything with them, why it's super important to take care of your skin, to get onto a nice skincare regimen, when to start it, earlier the better of getting your skin ready and prepped. I also help them with products, educating them on what products to use, how to use them, and then also getting them into the treatment room so that we can start facials and getting the skin nice and glowy, and then help them each way. Like you start at a year of a nice skincare routine, find an esthetician. If you're into Botox and injectables and everything as well too, start those about a year so that, if you like it, what woman doesn't, but, along with, 3 to 6 months out, we start to book your trial. And then we'll start talking about, your vision of what your hair and makeup, how to, get your hair ready. Most women think that, I'm just going to grow my hair out for the whole entire year. And I have to explain to them, like, we need to do healthy trims. I said, because at the end, when you're getting super close, all of this effort that you've done to grow your hair out, when you go to see your hairstylist, they have to chop off all these dead ends. And you're a little shorter than what you're going to anticipate, right? And we don't want to have the dead end hair. We want your hair to be nice and healthy and shiny.
So when you say, starting to get your skin ready, right? Okay, so you talked about hair. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if someone wants to grow out their hair, they have to keep up with the healthy trims.
Trims, yep.
So that's cut and dry. Okay, got it. What about the skin? So take me through like the 1 year mark. Like what would you recommend in regards to what they should be doing when that 1 year mark? And then tell me also too when it becomes a little bit too close and they should try to like what things they should avoid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the year mark, we always start, I start pretty basic, also depending on what their budget is, right? There's a weddings.
Let's pretend we have endless budget.
Let's go. So then we're going to make sure that you have a cleanser, a toner, a serum, for day and night. Make sure you're exfoliating. And then number one, SPF. Like we can't forget our SPF, right? Your serum for during the day, vitamin C. Nighttime, your retinol, anti-aging. So those are always the biggest ones to start out with and use. And then get you into the treatment room, and then we could do depending on what your concerns are, whether it's fine lines or wrinkles or you have pigmentation or dehydrating, there's certain things that we can do. We could do chemical pills, we could do microdermabrasions, we can do radio frequency. So you get pretty creative of what we can do with the tools and products, right, in the room. So, and then from there, we just, stay in with them, checking in, see how they are doing with the products, having them come in. And then when you get closer to the wedding date, then it's about, are you going to do a spray tan? do you have a whole lot of peach fuzz? A lot of women have peach fuzz, and they're like super, concerned about that. So then, get closer to the date of dermaplaning and that. So you don't want to do it super close or too far away. You want to probably do it 2 weeks before, things like that.
So a lot of these, I would assume a lot of these, especially when you're getting into like laser or micro needling, you shouldn't be doing them too close to your wedding, though, right? I don't know. Or like Botox, like can't you doesn't Botox take a while to settle in? Like
2 weeks, but everybody, everyone's a little different. Mm-hmm. So, So when it comes to the lasers and things like that, definitely further out, not super close to the date, just in case if something happens, you get a burn, then we have to work on that. And so, Botox, that's why I say start it out a year, and then as you get closer to the wedding date, then everything is about a month, 2 weeks out.
How about the wedding party? So we talked about the VIP, right? Mm-hmm. But what about her wedding party or her, mothers or anything you can suggest for them at how they prep for their wedding day or the wedding day?
Pretty much kind of like, the same thing, let the girls know, just to keep their skin hydrated, exfoliate. And then, obviously for the wedding day, send out how to make sure that they're not wearing any makeup the day of, that they come with clean, dry hair.
Okay. But, all right, not to interrupt you. Mm-hmm. Clean, dry hair. The days of coming with wet hair is long gone, right?
Oh, yeah, long gone. Yeah. Just because we don't have time. We make a timeline and we schedule it out, for each person for hair and for makeup. So if we have to blow dry, that cuts into the time and then runs into us running late. But listen, it happens. It happens every weekend, honestly. And, you just, depending on how wet it is, you kindly just ask them, hey, can you go dry your hair for me? And we move on to the next person. Mm-hmm. If it's just a little wet, then obviously I'll blow dry it. But, there are some women that do come and they're, ready to go for a blowout. And I'm like, I wish I could. I really could, Or, obviously, if there are women who want that, letting you know prior so you can build it in the timeline, which we'll definitely get into timelines a little bit later on in the show after the break. But I'm sure, could you take that request if they want that? Absolutely. Just, we just need to know so that we can schedule it out accordingly. Mm-hmm. And then,
So we talked a lot about how to prep for the day. So what about the ideas or the look? What are you seeing for trends? And what are you also suggesting to people to do to help you deliver what they're looking for? Or maybe some people don't even know what they're looking for. That's another thing. I mean, at least for me, I don't wear makeup. So I know when I got married, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I mean, I know that that's why there's trials. But, I mean, nowadays, there's so much imagery right at your fingertips. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some tools that you can tell people to help them figure out and narrow down what they're looking for.
Absolutely. So, the biggest thing is, when you're finding your artist is, looking at their pictures, on social media, finding the niche, do you like the full makeup? Do you like the more softer?
Not to interrupt you, full makeup. Mm-hmm. That terminology, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm going to put your husband on the test. What's full makeup, Jason?
I would imagine it's full coverage. Literally every part of your face has makeup on it, I would imagine.
And a lot of it.
Yeah. So probably the Jersey Shore look.
Fair. Yeah. So full coverage is a full face, full makeup. So verse, what were you about to say?
Versus the more natural.
Yeah. So for terminology, because I've been hearing that a lot, I want full face. Oh, what the hell's full face? I would just think full face is full, you put makeup on your whole full face.
Yeah,
right?
They like it more on the heavier side,
okay.
More contoured. Making sure you contour that nose. That's the biggest one. Don't forget my nose.
Okay.
And my double chins too.
Okay. All right.
So they just there's some women that like the full on makeup, and then there's some that just like to have their skin like to show through, right? So
you were right, Jason. Look at you.
Yes, I've been listening.
Many years and you finally got it, right? No, just kidding.
Right? But with wedding makeup, it's hard, you know. I just had a trial last night, and the mom was with, and she thought, you know, and the bride was a little bit more on the natural side and everything. And she goes, there's so much makeup. She goes, but you're putting it in layers. And I said, yes. I said, there's a fine way to apply makeup. I said, because, you know, it's for the photography. And the biggest thing is that it has to be able to last all day long. It's not like everyday makeup, right? Like if I put it on like a tinted moisturizer and went on with my day. There's certain products and certain ways in how we apply the makeup to where it still looks nice and seamless and blended and natural.
So, okay, so then what happens with somebody who doesn't like understand what look they were looking for?
Yeah, so I always like to tell my brides is, you know, there's so much out on the social media, you know, and my version of being natural could be totally different from your version of natural. So I always tell my brides, pick out 3 inspirations. 3 inspirations for makeup, 3 inspirations for hair. Why? Because when you start to have more than that, you get to be overwhelmed. And then you're kind of like second guessing. And you're kind of like, wow, you know, I kind of like this. But now I don't know. So that's why I say 3. And then when we're at the trial, I'll pull up the inspo pictures that they sent, and I'll ask them, what do you like about this? What do you gravitate to more? Is it because you like that she has the brown liner? Do you like because she has a little shimmer here? And then we go to the other picture, and she, you know, she's like, well, I like the lashes in this second picture. Right? And then in the third picture, she's like, well, I just like in how the skin's glowy, right? So that's how we customize and create the bridal look.
I love it. And then now I feel like I might know this answer to this, and I'm just trying to like almost see if I'm right, but also too, just for our listeners, I want to give them some tips. What is the trend that you're seeing right now?
Oh my goodness.
I feel like I know. I feel like I know because I'm seeing the same thing I'm photographing, but
yes, the trend right now is more of the soft, like
bingo,
glowy
natural.
Skin, natural.
Like you're not wearing makeup.
Yes.
But if I'm going to go back to your terminology, it really is a full face.
It is a full face, but it's still super natural. There's products out there that we use that can give you that look.
Which goes back down to what we were originally talking about, prepping your skin.
Yes.
Right?
Super important.
Yeah.
Super important because as I tell my brides, you know, the makeup is only going to look as good as what, you know, we're doing for our skin. So we're taking care of our skin, we're exfoliating, we're making sure that, you know, we're getting in a healthy diet and exercise. When wedding day comes, your skin is going to look amazing and the makeup is going to look flawless. And it's going to be beautiful in pictures.
So what I think we'll do is let's take a quick break. And when we get back, let's dive into a little bit about timelines. Okay. And then let's actually talk about day of and the logistics of day of, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcast. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. So, Nikki, before the break, we were talking a little bit about how to prep your skin for wedding day and the trends that you're seeing on wedding day. I learned that full face, what that meant, and how to get inspiration to you, right? But let's actually talk about wedding day. And I don't know about you, but I have a lot of opinions about this. Okay. So, all right, let's go over first timeline.
Okay.
Right? So give it to me.
Timelines. So super huge. And that's the biggest thing. I do see still to this day, there's artists out there that don't do timelines. And I don't understand.
Are you serious?
Yeah, there are some. They just kind of go with the flow. And I'm like,
God.
I don't understand how you can do that. But, I always tell my brides, I like to do the timelines closer to the wedding day just because they book me, a year and a half out. There's so many things that can change, so many details. And because they're just so busy with work, life, planning a wedding, they forget to update the vendors about, hey, this location changed, or, oh, this timing changed for a first look. So I always tell them, if you're doing a first look, let me know what you and your photographer have discussed, and then I can go back from there. Like, I already know what time your ceremony is, but if, there's a couple that's doing a first look, I have to know what time the photographer needs you ready by, and then I can work backwards from that.
That is so funny you say that. So that's what I was saying. Like, I have a lot of opinions about this, right? Because first and foremost, your hair and makeup is the exact the first thing you're doing, other than obviously waking up, right? It's literally the first thing you're doing. And your ceremony is the one thing that's a confirmed time between the time you wake up and then the time you get married, right? And then obviously there's other confirmed times, like obviously cocktail hour and reception. But I'm talking about that's your first confirmed time, right?
Yeah.
So meanwhile, that could be 5 or 6 hours of time, right? So there's a lot going on in between there. So as a photographer, there's nothing that pains me the most if that couple is not, if that bride and the bridesmaids are not out of that makeup chair on the time that we said, it is a domino effect and it affects everything, because what the next thing that we're up against is the exact time of the ceremony, right?
Right.
So I'm so surprised that people don't do timelines.
I've run into a few and I was shocked, and I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
Just let them do them on that.
But the other thing, too, is I'm so happy you said that. Like, you don't want to do a final timeline until closer to the event. Because the number one question that I get as a photographer is it's not if they're going to ask me, it's when they're going to ask me. They always say, when do I need to have my hair and makeup ready by? It comes all the time. A lot of times for me, my final detail call is closer to the wedding. It's about 3 weeks to the wedding. I don't want to do it too close where they're stressing them out, but I don't want to do it too far away, because it's called a final detail call. Like we're going over the final timeline. So if someone's emailing me, which to them it doesn't seem like a long time. It seems like it's very quick. Like, oh, my wedding's coming up in 2 months. When do I need my hair and makeup ready by? And to me, that is such a jam. It's not a quick, like, this time. Yeah. It's a jam-packed question. It's exactly what we're going over the phone, that sometimes it lasts an hour, because it's a domino effect. You just touched upon it. It's how many people are getting ready. Are we doing a first look? Where is the first look? Is there transportation? I mean, these are all these questions. So the reason why I'm going off on a tangent for a second here is I'm so happy you said that you like to do it closer to the event, because there's a reason why people are asking. So some there must be some makeup artists that want to know their schedule. I get it.
Yeah.
Is it okay to be like a window of time, and then we tighten up that timeline closer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely, because, we're humans, right? We have an idea of how the day is going to go. But like I said, there's always something that comes up.
Right.
So, doing it closer to the event is just much, much easier. And it's less work on our ends as well, too, of me having to do multiple timelines. And then they're like going back and forth in their emails. We're like, oh, well, this is which timeline? And I'm just like, no, we'll do it closer, and we'll talk about everything. If anything's changed, if there's transportation, how far away it is, because everybody also forgets, like, if their get ready location is not at the venue and they're 15 to 20 minutes away, we also have to count that time in. And you have to count so if it takes you 15, 20 minutes away to drive, you also need to add in another 15, 20 minutes to get out of the room, get into the transportation, and then also get out. So what I tell my couples is I'll hop on the call quickly, because I can't just do it through email. I'm asking them these questions. Where are you getting married? Okay,
Where is the first look? Where's the transportation? And I'll say to them, okay, this is where I recommend, but please tell your hair and makeup artist there's some wiggle room. And then we'll regroup.
Yes.
Yeah, if I can jump in. I mean, she's always talking to me in the
right.
background, right? In the kitchen, about how it's the start time as well. Like the end time determines what the start time needs to be based on how many artists she's bringing with her, based on how many people are getting services done. So sometimes the start time needs to be, to me, insanely early. And to these brides also very early because they're always fighting her tooth and nail on to win the start time. Can we push the start time later? Can we push the start time later? And it's like, no. I mean, unless you want the whole rest of your day to potentially fall apart because like you're saying, if they are late to get out of that chair to move on to the next thing, then literally every other thing in the day is behind. And the other thing that can't move is the end time of the reception. Mm-hmm. So then you're cutting into my time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
As the DJ, if all this stuff gets pushed back, then you're cutting into your dancing. And what's the one thing I always hear from couples on my side is we want as much dancing as possible. Yeah. Well, then let's make sure the timeline is set up appropriately. You need a little wiggle room because, like you said, this transition from this room to that room, we think it's instant. Mm-mm. If you've ever seen people come in from a cocktail hour to a reception, that's a 20-minute ordeal easily. Mm-hmm. Just to move 150 people from through this door.
Yeah. or like I said, like there's people who get, let's just take a very simple situation, right? Let's forget about transportation and driving because that's a whole other layer. But let's say you're getting ready at the venue and you're having your ceremony at the venue. Well, they're thinking, oh, I just have to walk outside and get married. No. We need to line you up. You need to walk down the stairs to go outside. Like this all takes time, right? So, I mean, and then just transfer that into obviously if you're getting ready at a hotel and you have to drive to the venue. Oh, it's a 10-minute drive. Okay, but it's 10 minutes to get outside the hotel, 10 minutes to get out of your car to walk into the venue. And then what are you going to do with all your crap that's in your hands, right? You got to put them down. So anyway, it's funny that you say that, Jason, because as a photographer, so you start the day, right?
Yeah.
And you know how long it takes you to do each individual. Mm-hmm. And honestly, and I'm sure the brides are not saying this to be pains. They just don't know.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's the other thing is like, they don't know. Like, so for me, it's not a cheap price tag photography, right? They're paying a lot of money.
And that's what I tell them too. I'm like, that's exactly what I say. At the end of the day, you're spending a lot of money on your photographer and or videographer, and then you're getting hair and makeup. I'm like, it's super important, right?
Right, but also, too, it's like if you are late in the makeup chair, like if you didn't start as early as your stylist said that they needed, you literally, like you said, Jason, like you literally just took up 15, 20 minutes. That's valuable time. Now, where are you going to make that up? As a photographer, I'm not going to have you late at that ceremony because that's going to piss off all your guests. So what's going to happen is I'm not going to be able to do all of the pictures that we discussed that you just spent money on, right?
Yeah.
So or if I do have time to do all that, you're super stressed out now. So and mentally, you're not in the game right now.
That's the other thing I was going to mention is you're not allowing yourself some time to just decompress and not be stressed. Excuse me, because if you're just rushing around the whole entire day, like it's already stressful enough. Like give yourself a moment to breathe.
And that's what I tell them too. As soon as you get up out of the chair, you might just think, oh, just doing a few pictures here with the bridesmaids, and then we're heading out. I'm like, the time just gets away from you so quickly.
Yeah, that one friend starts to talk to you about something, and there's 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and then and it's gone, and then you're like late.
Yep. So I mean, I just say, and I would love to, I'd love to hear that you're on the same page as me, right?
Yeah.
But I always say, here's a rough timeline, give or take about 20 or half an hour minutes, because that 20 half an hour minutes are some variables that we have to figure out closer to your event, right? But I say, at least you could tell your hair and makeup this, but we really. And I think part of the time they're doing their own timeline. I get it. That's what they're trying to do. But I just think that they have to trust their vendors and just know that, for them, and I get it, you're just trying to check things off your list. I mean, they have so much going on. But unfortunately, it's just kind of like your RSVPs. You can't start doing your seating chart until your RSVPs are in. Well, guess what? You can't do your timeline until really closer to your event, because all you're doing is wasting your own time and communication to your mom or your bridesmaids, because that's all going to change.
It is. It really is. And that's why the way that I like to do my timeline, depending on location, if they're doing first look, I always like to have them done between an hour to an hour and a half, right, before they need to leave. That way they have time to use the restroom, grab a bite if they didn't get enough to eat, right? Do those little extra photos that, that they want for behind the scenes for makeup or whatnot.
That's funny you say that because we're literally on the same page. So I arrive exactly 2 hours before we walk out that door because, you ready for this one? Drum roll, bum, 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 bum. I want you in that makeup chair for the last half an hour. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Last half an hour. And then during that half an hour, I'm doing your lay flats and your details and photographing your final fixings. And then you are out of that chair for an hour and a half. Now, they could be working on the bridesmaids, but the bride, hour and a half. Because there's getting ready, having something to eat, going to the bathroom, relaxing for a second. So we are literally on the same page. I arrived exactly 2 hours prior to leave time, and I want them out of that makeup chair and hair chair 1.5 hours later.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, I'm sorry, not later. 1.5 hours before left.
Yep. And it works out great. It works out great because then, you're not rushing. You're not feeling like, oh, my gosh, But some of the weddings that I have this year, they're bigger bridal parties. And like Jason said, they're giving me the hardest time. And they're like, they just want to work up to the time. And I'm like,
no, it doesn't work that way.
You can't do that.
Yeah, they literally want to work all the way up to the time we have to leave.
Like, yeah, you know what, though? And that's just having the communication. You're right. I get the same thing. And like the thing is, so there's your answer, right? Is that your hair and makeup need to be done 2 hours prior to leave time. But you think that's a simple question when they email me. But no, because it's where are we getting ready? Do we have to travel? So these are all the questions that, it just a lot goes into it. I got a question for you, though. You talked about bridal parties, right? And the size of bridal parties.
Yes.
What happens if not everybody's doing hair and makeup?
Well, they come in, they get to enjoy everything, but then they start seeing everybody getting their hair and makeup, and then they come up and they ask, hey, can you do my hair and makeup? And usually there's not enough time, unfortunately. And what I always tell them is, I would love to, but if there's enough time at the end, we'll totally be able to get you into the chair. I don't like to give them false hope or anything that they'll be able to, but, that's why it's super important, when I talk with the bride, are you sure this is everybody? And also, too, don't forget Grandma. Mm-hmm. Grandma does get her hair and makeup done a lot, So that way it just alleviates everybody feeling left out when they're in there in the room.
Right. And also, too, visually, there's a component there.
Visually, yes. And that's for, the photography. And I always tell them, professional makeup is going to look different. It's going to translate different in your photos to someone who's doing their own makeup, unfortunately.
It does. I mean, look, we're all beautiful, right? Everybody always says to me, like, oh my God, you photograph the most beautiful couples. Well, they are, right? They're happy. Like, there's something to be, beauty is also the way you present yourself, right? They're happy and they're in love and they're getting married and their friends are all beautiful. But you are right. When we're talking about hair and makeup right now, there is a difference with professional hair and makeup and someone doing it on their own. And if you have the entire wedding party doing one and there's one or two people not, it does. I hate to say, it does translate.
It does.
It does. So it's something to be thinking about.
And that's why I'm like, you're spending so much money. Just, gift it to them for the hair and makeup. They will love you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that is the bridesmaid gift, right?
Yeah.
Or a portion of it or something, That's a good idea, right? I do see people do that a lot. Like, instead of foregoing a bridesmaid gift, that is their gift. I'm going to make you feel special on my day.
And I have a lot of brides that do ask me. They're like, what do people do? And I was like, it's a 50-50. I was like, because when you add up all of the gifts, it's a lot when you're getting it from here, from there, especially if you have a huge bridal party. So I always tell my couples, my brides, just gift the hair and makeup. They will absolutely love that more than you getting them another glass.
Especially, your friends. If financial situation is a situation for somebody and you really want them to have hair and makeup, you have to ultimately think about that as part of your budget.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is just for listeners who aren't getting married and you're just listening to this podcast and you're just a guest or you know someone getting married, in order to be if you're accept to be in a bridal party, you also have to understand that comes, unfortunately, with some financial responsibility. So it's okay to there's ways, and you can Google it, and it happens all the time. There's ways to bow out of it. There's ways to be open and honest with your friend and just say, financially, I can't do it. It's better that way than to get in a situation where, you know, you're stuck with expectations that you can't meet. It goes on both ways is what I'm basically trying to say. Like, there's a financial responsibility being a bridesmaid.
Yes, and it's expensive on the bridesmaids.
Right.
So, you know, being more upfront and being honest of whether, you know, you can afford it or not is definitely the best way, because for me, like, you know, I have a certain limit and you have up to a certain amount of days to where you can add or take away any services, you know, and it's like I tell my brides, does it happen often? No, but sometimes it does. And if you're past the 90 days, you're still going to be responsible for the hair and makeup.
Right.
So make sure.
And that's the thing. That's why I said there's ways to Google it. There's ways to Google an average financial responsibility in the area of your country of being a bridesmaid. Or like, you know, I hate making people rely on Google, but you just know that, like, you know where the wedding's at. You know how much it takes to travel there or things to do. Like, I don't know. I just say I know that I've had a lot of friends where I've seen them not be part of the bridal party because they weren't ready to financially take the responsibility, but they're there in support.
Yeah.
Or if you are someone who wants someone to be part of the bridal party, and you know that there's a financial situation, you might need to think about paying for that portion of it and just being part of your budget.
Right, 100%.
On an average in this area, what are you seeing roughly someone needs in their head budget for hair and makeup on the low end and the high end? Just for this part of the country, just for the listeners, because we're talking about, you know, financial responsibility, right?
$2,500 to.
I mean, per person. I'm talking about.
Oh, per person.
Yeah.
Sorry. So. In the bridal party, they're about $125 to $150. Well, no, actually, I take that back. $125 to $175.
That's what I figured. And then there's gratuity.
And,
and then you know, there's also the dresses,
shoes,
bachelorette
parties, bridal shower, and then you need outfits for all of those things too. So that's where I always say if they can't afford it, just keep them included with all the other festivities, right? They'll be super grateful for that.
Well, I love it. Well, thank you so much for both of you guys joining me again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's time for our wrap-up question. What are some key points that couples should be asking their hair and makeup companies when they're inquiring to make sure that they are working with a professional company to ensure that their wedding day is a perfect event?
So definitely being able, do you have social media? Is there anywhere where we can see your pictures, your work? Where do you work? So I do get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Like, do you work? They always ask, do you work at a salon? And I say, no, I'm independent. But I do work at this venue, and this venue where you could totally see all my work from. Website. I get huge following from the brides from on my websites as well too, and reviews. Reviews are pretty big, because they get to see in how you interact, how you work with everybody.
Yeah, and just to chime in about reviews, if you start reading someone's reviews, you'll start to see a common theme.
Yes.
In someone's reviews, and you'll know if that resonates with you. There always will be those common words that someone always says, So just to see if it resonates with you.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Wedding Secrets Unveiled. You helped our listeners become one step closer to their journey of stress-free wedding planning. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Beauty by Mineko. Also on Facebook, and then and then my website as well too, which is Beauty by Mineko.
And what I'll do for our listeners is I will have Nikki's information on our episode show notes, which you can find on our blog and our website podcast page, which is at sarahzarella.com/podcast. Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.